Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Made by Margaret. My name is Emma Margaret and this is my YouTube video where I talk about all of the knitting projects that I am working on. Now, we should probably address the elephant in the room first, which is that I created this channel at the beginning of 2025 with the intention of uploading knitting podcasts regularly about once every month, and I have only posted 2 videos. And the last one was on February 14th, and it is currently the end of October, so it was over 8 months ago that I last posted a video. Life just got in the way, and the knitting videos weren't a priority, and therefore they never happened. At the end of my last video, I mentioned that I was going to be going to the Unraveled Festival in Farnham, Surrey, UK, and I talked about maybe vlogging that. I did attend the festival, I had a wonderful time, I did vlog it, I did film a video about my experiences at it, and then it never got edited and it never got posted. So as of right now, I'm not sure if that footage will ever see the light of day, but if you're interested in it, let me know and I can compile it all together for you. But just because I've not been filming YouTube videos over the last 8 months, it doesn't mean I haven't been knitting. So I have a lot to go through with you all today. So get tucked in because I imagine this is going to be quite a long video. And on that note, I am sitting in front of a window at the moment and the sun is setting. So if the lighting in this video is bad or starts to go near the end, I do apologize. It's just Mother Nature turning the lights off. So let's go ahead and jump right in to the finished objects. For everything, I'm going to go in chronological order. So finished objects are in the order in which I finished them, and the works in progress are the order in which I cast them on. So we'll get started with the first finished object, which I completed, I believe, in around February or March of this year. I had not cast it on when I filmed my last video, but I did cast it on and finish shortly thereafter, and that is these socks. This pair of socks here. I made this pair of socks for my boyfriend. It is a self-drafted pattern, though it does very closely replicate the Petal Drop sock pattern by Florence Miller. I used that as sort of a starting point and then made modifications from there. So you can see it's in this 4x1 rib all throughout the sock. It is knit cuff down. It's got the heel flap and gusset. The heel flap is reinforced with slip stitches, and then it's just got the standard decrease toe at the bottom there. This is a pair of socks I made for my boyfriend. They're made specifically to his liking. He picked out this yarn himself when we were traveling in Sevilla, Spain. It is Concept by Katia, 4-ply, symmetric socks and more blossom. So it is a 75% superwash wool and 25% polyamide yarn, and it is in the color 63. So it's got a lot of these different cool tones with a little bit of warm tone with the yellow. The pattern, or the sock, is variegated, so it just naturally has this sort of condensed color at the sock and then sort of gradually fades out through the rest. This is my preferred sock construction method, the cuff down, heel flap, and gusset with the reinforced heel. Normally when I make socks for other people, I do like to do an anatomical toe, where instead of the decreases on the left and right side of the sock being equal, they are skewed to sort of fit your big toe, if that makes sense. And it does create a left and right version of the sock if you do that. But my boyfriend had asked that I not do that so they could be interchangeable, which is why they came out the way that they did. I'm really happy with how these turned out. This is the first sock pattern that I've ever self-drafted, even though not a lot of modifications were made. But yes, I'm very happy with how these turned out. They didn't take too long to make, and that's pretty much all I gotta say about them. The next finished object took up probably 3 to 4 months of time, and it is the Groovy Tank by Emma Jaeger, or Jaeger. Her username is Midsummer Knit. Here is the tank here. Whoops. dropped my book. Here is the tank top, and I was part of the test knit for that pattern, which I was thrilled to be a part of. I knit it in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, which is a 70% cotton and 30% merino yarn in the color Dusty Artichoke. I really enjoyed being part of this test knit. I have wanted to do a test knit for a while, and I'd applied for a lot of them but ended up not being selected, and I think that's because I didn't have any experience in previous test knits. But Emma very kindly chose me and I got to participate. It was myself and I think there was about 30 women total who participated in it. It was a great community. They were so helpful with answering questions. Emma was as well too. Her response time, if we had any questions or suggestions, was really quick and speedy. She was very flexible on if we needed a little bit of extra time, and the deadline actually was extended. It was super well organized, and overall just a great experience. For my size in particular, there were some major modifications or adjustments that were made in the pattern during the test knit, but those issues have now been resolved and should not be an issue in the final pattern, which has been released. I think that was released in July, late June, early July, if I'm not mistaken. And I just wanted to go through this pattern and sort of talk about a couple of different things. Now, there are a couple of things about this pattern which don't suit me personally. It's not an issue with the pattern itself, it's just ended up not being for me. Now, if I show the garment here, you can see this really beautiful bust shaping. And before I made the pattern, when I had just seen the photos that she'd released of it, I thought that the number of stitches, the stitch count along the bust, was going to be significantly greater than the number of stitches around the waist. And it's not. It's basically a tube because the increases and decreases around the shaping are about the same. So there is no change in circumference from the waist to the bust. And I myself, just how my body is shaped, I have a very high bust to waist ratio where my waist is considerably smaller than my bust is. And because of that, the top doesn't fit me very well. It fits around the bust. In fact, sort of at the apex of my bust, it is a little bit on the snug side, and it is very baggy at my waist. So unfortunately, it's not fitting me particularly well. In addition to that, I made my straps a little bit too long, which is entirely an issue with myself, and if I wanted to, I could certainly go back, rip out about 2 to 3 centimeters, and that would be much better. But because of the issues around the bust and the waist fit, I'm not sure that I'm going to go back and do that. I think that this might be a project that I look at giving to a family member or a friend who is going to be able to love and use this garment a lot more than myself. If you are somebody who doesn't have a very high bust to waist ratio, then I think this pattern would be perfect for you. Just to note, it is, you can see, knit in 2x2 rib on US size 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles. So it is a very time-consuming project. This took a long time. There are a lot of stitches, but I do think that the finished product is of really high quality. I think, you know, it looks like something that you could buy from the store if that's something that you're interested in these knitting projects, and I would highly recommend it. One other difficulty that I had, and one of the other test knitters was so kind as to sort of sit me down and, you know, go through what I was doing wrong and give some suggestions, was on the bust shaping at the top. Sorry, I should mention it's knit top up. So you start at the bottom and you knit your way up, and then you do the shaping, and then you cast off for the bust, and then you knit the straps here. And when I was doing the bust shaping at the very top along this edge, I was getting this like really wonky looking texture. It wasn't looking symmetrical at all to the other side, and that's because I was having a problem with my left leaning decreases. So my skip knit, or slip knit, and someone reached out to me and gave me some feedback, and I just wanted to read out what I did. So this was working on the wrong side for a left-leaning decrease. I slipped the first stitch knitwise, the second stitch purlwise, and then knit them together through the back loop. So if I do have before and after photos, or even just a before photo of what this was looking like, then I'll include it here off to the side, so hopefully you can see, but that was how I resolved that issue. I also made a couple of mistakes somewhere around the bust. I think I just lost count of my row at some point, but I was able to quite easily fix that mistake later on and just making a small adjustment to the pattern. And otherwise, there were no other difficulties. It went really well. I did wear this a couple of times in the summer. It is a wonderful summer project, but again, the issues with the fit still stand, so I've not been wearing it too much. Also, before I move on to the next one, sorry, I just wanted to mention, I did get this pattern for free as part of the test knit, but I did purchase the yarn myself, just for full transparency. All right, on to the next garment. This is another summer tank top. I was really loving having like something to wear in the summer, but wanted something that was a little bit easier to throw on. So I knit the Montpellier top by Anne Frixum-Sund, but her username is November Knits NO, who you might be familiar with if you are on Ravelry or on Instagram and like all things knitting. This is the top here. I absolutely love it. It's so wearable, it's so comfortable, it knit up incredibly quickly. I think I finished it in about 3 weeks, and I'm super happy with the final product. Now, I knit this in Wool and the Gang Shiny Happy Cotton in the color Timber Wolf, and this yarn has a bit of a backstory. 6 or 7 years ago, I bought 3 sweater quantities of this yarn in an attempt to make a sweater for myself, my mom, and my sister in different colors. I was gonna make the Julia sweater by Wool and the Gang, and I knit the one for myself the first to try to sort of, you know, find any mistakes that I might make and sort of fine tune what I needed to do before I made them for other people. So I finished the one for myself. I got about 70% of the way through the one for my mom and about 20% of the way through the one for my sister. And I tried on this sweater and I absolutely hated it. It just wasn't fitting well. It felt really tight at my shoulders. I believe it was like a drop sleeve construction. Felt really tight at my shoulders and really baggy around my wrists, and it just sort of felt really heavy, and I wasn't happy with it at all. So I've actually frogged all of the progress I've made on all of the sweaters and have basically just been sitting on this yarn ever since then. And I find it really hard to find something to make with this yarn because it is 100% cotton Aran weight yarn. And normally when I think of cotton yarn, I think of sort of summer knits, so things that are light and breezy, and therefore much smaller in weight than an Aran weight yarn. And a lot of the sweaters that I look at that are knit in an Aran weight are knit in a 100% wool or, you know, blended wool material. And I just feel like if I was to use this Aran weight cotton in replace of an Aran weight wool in a sweater project, it would be really heavy and I would have the same issues with drape that I did with the original Julia sweater. But in a summer knit, in sort of a tank top, it worked perfectly because it's cotton, it's super soft, it's super breathable. I don't find the drape of it to be too heavy. It actually has some nice movement to it. And it's, I don't know exactly how many, you know, centimeters or inches of positive ease it has, but it's just got a little bit of positive ease. It's not massively oversized. And I wanted to talk about some modifications that I made to the pattern, as I typically do. I changed the ribbing on the edge here from 1x1 rib to a half twisted rib, and I did the same thing for the ribbing at the hem. And for the collar up here for the neckline, I pretty much switch all of my 1x1 rib to half twisted rib. If you've watched my previous videos, I've probably mentioned that before. And the other modification that I made is in regards to this edging here for the armholes. I forget exactly what it wanted you to do, but I think it was a slip stitch. And I was doing that and it was looking really loose and really messy. So I actually decided to change the pattern a little bit there, and I'll just read off what I did. So I had to cast on 2 extra stitches, and then at the edges, going in both directions, I would slip 1 stitch purlwise with the yarn in front, bring the yarn to the back, and then knit through the back loop. And then you'd follow the pattern all the way to the end, turn it around, and start it going back in the opposite direction. So that is personally what I did for the edge of the garment here. It's not perfect, but I do think it is considerably better than it was before, and I'm very happy having made that change. The other change that I made is that typically in the pattern you do the armpit shaping here, where you increase, 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 and then the pattern calls for you to do a couple centimeters of just straight down before joining it, and I omitted those additional rows, and I did that intentionally. When I was looking at the photos of the pattern on Ravelry, I found that the armpits went down quite far, sort of in the way that like a muscle tee would, and I was going to need to wear a bra with this, and wanted to make sure that you weren't able to see my bra underneath, so I omitted those to sort of tighten the armpit holes, or the armholes if you will, to ensure that I could wear a bra underneath and it wouldn't show, and that was successful. It's not too tight underneath, but it doesn't show a bra if I'm wearing it, so again, very happy with that change. And this is the finished object. Super happy. All right, the next finished object is the Rocking Chair Socks by Paulina Consola, and this is a pattern in the 52 Weeks of Socks by Laine Publishing that I've spoken about in the past. And here are the socks here. I'll hold one up so you can kind of see. Here is the sock. So it is again a top down or cuff down sock with a heel flap and gusset construction. I knit this in Opal Uni 4-ply in the color 5195 jeans blue. It is a 70% wool, 25% polyamide yarn. The pattern calls for it to be knit on US 0 needles, but I actually knit it on US size 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles. Typically socks have like a standard number of stitches that you cast on for the 2 sizes that it normally has, and I felt like for the number of stitches that I was casting on, I was probably going to need a needle size a little bit greater, so I went ahead and did that, and the sock fits well. I have blocked this sock on my sock blocker, and I have no problems wearing it. It fits great. This pattern is so good. It is very potato chippy. As you can see, you get these sort of like different striped lace sort of pattern through it, and it's so easy to be like, oh, just another row, oh, just another row, oh, just another row, oh, just another row, and then by the time you look up from your work, hours have passed and you're basically done the sock. It's so potato chippy. You just want to keep going and keep going and keep going. I really love that about this pattern. Now the heel flap here in the pattern is not reinforced. It's just a standard stockinette stitch. I do prefer to have a reinforced heel flap. I feel that that really increases the durability and the longevity of the sock. However, the reason that I'm excited about the 52 Week of Socks book is because I want to learn new techniques and new skills, and so I've decided that I'm going to make all of the socks in this book as true to pattern as possible, just so that I can try it out and see how I like it. So I didn't reinforce the heel. I thought about it, but I didn't reinforce it. And the only thing that is different to the pattern, call it an error, call it a mistake, call it a happy accident, I don't know what you'd like to call it, but when I was reading the finishing of the toe, you're supposed to decrease down to, I believe it's 16 stitches. And my silly little brain read that as 16 stitches on needle 1 and 16 stitches on needle 2 when you're doing the magic loop method for a total of 32 stitches. And I had, you know, measured the yarn that I was going to need to Kitchener stitch up the toe, cut the yarn, and then immediately realized that I had made a mistake and read the pattern wrong. But because I had already cut the yarn, I decided to go ahead with it. So my toe is a lot wider than the pattern calls for. And I call it a happy accident because after having blocked the sock, it does fit me perfectly. And I think if I had decreased down further for a total of 16 stitches, it might actually be a little bit too long in the foot. So I just made the second sock to mirror it. So they both have this sort of extra wide Kitchener stitch toe, but it fits really well and I'm happy with it. I love wearing these socks. This is the first pair of socks I've ever made for myself. I've always knit socks as a gift knit, so I'm super excited to have these and to be able to wear them in the fall and winter. I finished these recently, just in September was when I finished these socks, and they only took me, I think, less than 2 weeks to make for the pair of them. All right, the next finished object I have, which is the last finished object I have, is actually not one that I have with me here in person because I knit it as a gift for my best friend Victoria. Back in October, I went back to Vancouver, Canada, which is where I'm originally from, and I wanted to bring her a knitted gift. She's gotten into knitting herself, and so I thought that'd be a really lovely thing to share. And I knit the Tiny Leaves scarf by Caroline Weselek, and I knit it in Kit Couture Cashmere color number 2406, which is this really nice, like, dusty, aqua, greeny blue color. It's like not blue and it's not green, it's somewhere equally in the middle, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. And it reminded me of my friend Victoria so much. When I saw it, was like, this is the perfect yarn to make from her. I picked it up from Beautiful Knitters, which is a fabulous yarn shop here in London. And I loved knitting this. It is easily the most beautiful knitted object that I have ever made. A 100% lace, 100% cashmere little mini scarf. It's absolutely precious. I love it. I think it turned out so well. I'm really happy with it. I unfortunately did not get a photo of it before I gave it to my friend, so I've kindly asked her if she would be able to take a photo of it and send it to me so that I can include it here. But if she's not able to do that, then I can input sort of a progress pic, because I do think I have one of those. I just don't have one myself of the finished object, so hopefully she's come through and is able to send us a photo and it's on the screen right now, but if not, I apologize. And there are, again, some modifications that I made to this pattern that I wanted to go through. The first modification is that I changed the edging on it. Again, I forget exactly what the pattern called for, but I modified it to include the I-cord edge, very similar to what is in the Petite Knit Sophie scarf. I modified it to include that, and I think it meant that I had to increase the number of stitches slightly, but I made that modification however it needed to be in order to allow for the I-cord edge, and the finishing of the edge, the I-cord edge, is really nice. I'm very glad that I made the decision to go ahead and do that. The other thing that I changed was that in the pattern, it's very similar to like all mini scarves where they're tapered at the ends, where one side is straight and the other side kind of comes out like this and then joins back like that. And there's these 3 rows of lace repeats, or 3 different columns of lace repeats, if you want to call them that. And in the pattern, you do these 3 columns plus a little bit extra, and I wasn't particularly thrilled by how that looked in the photos, so I just omitted it entirely. I just increased until I got to the 3 columns, knit those, and then began decreasing once I had used up half of my yarn. So that was how I went about doing that. And yeah, so thrilled with the sweater. It was super engaging. It's not a mindless knit by any means. You definitely need to have that chart up in front of you, or the written instructions. It comes as both. But I really enjoyed it, and I was, yeah, completely addicted. I think I knit on it for like 6 hours straight one night. I was really obsessed. That is all of the finished objects. So in the last 8 months, I have finished the pair of socks for my boyfriend. I have finished the Groovy Tank as a test knit. I have finished the Montpellier top, the rocking chair socks, which I made for myself, and the Tiny Leaves mini scarf, which I made for my friend Victoria. And that's all the knitting that I got up to, and I'm pretty pleased with that amount of progress. It's been busy over these last 8 months, so I think that's a good amount for me. And we'll move ahead into our works in progress. And the first work in progress, I'm embarrassed by. I spoke about it as a work in progress in my very last video, and these are the Songbird Socks by Erica Hooser. Here they are. They're on some stitch holders right now. I have not knit a single stitch on these socks in 8 months. It is the exact same amount of progress as it was back in February. I think that it's a combination of the fact that it was the spring and summer months, and so I wasn't feeling particularly motivated to be knitting a pair of mittens, but the weather is cooling down considerably here in London, so I am hoping in the next couple of weeks to pick these back up and start going again. The other reason that I have avoided knitting this is the mistake down at the thumb, the issues with the tension. I spoke all about it in my last video and showed it up close in more detail, but it is entirely likely that by the next video I have ripped out the entire hand portion of these socks and just started again, because the more I look at it, the more that it bothers me. And I told myself in the past that blocking would somehow magically resolve this issue, and I'm now positive that it won't. So yeah, these are very likely going to be frogged and restarted, and I am hoping to get going on this project again soon, since it's a good time of year to be working on a pair of mittens. The next work in progress that I have is something that I had purchased yarn for in my last video, but it had not yet arrived, and that is the Daydreamer Cardigan by Veronica Lindberg. I'll go ahead here and try to hold it up for you guys. I've made some pretty decent progress on it. You can see I've got the body done. This sleeve has not been started, and this sleeve has. I'm probably about 2/3 of the way done that sleeve, but that is the progress of where I'm at here. I am knitting this in one strand of Drops Lima, which is a 65% wool, 35% alpaca yarn, and I am knitting this in the color 0519, which I believe is the color dark gray mix. That's what it's called. And I'm holding that together with Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk, which is 77% alpaca, 23% silk, in the color number 3 or gray. So these don't match each other exactly. They're not the same color, but I do think that they go quite well together, and I'm not mad that they don't match perfectly. I have been wanting to experiment with yarns that are not silk mohair. Silk mohair is incredibly popular. I fully understand why. That beautiful halo that you get is wonderful. I've knit a sweater vest and a sweater myself in a silk mohair and really enjoy it. However, I do find it a little bit irritating on the skin, and so I'm trying to find alternatives to silk mohair, and Surrey alpaca or a brushed alpaca silk is something that's commonly used sort of as a substitute for that. It's a very, let's see if I can pull it out here. It's a very thin, very fluffy yarn, and it gives a similar effect with it being in a different composition. Now and I knit this on, I had to do a gauge swatch and I had to change it up, so the body of this is knit in 4.5mm needles. That's what I needed in order to achieve gauge, and I did gauge swatch and block that swatch, so I'm sure that it will turn out. I cast this on probably in March. I cast this on so long ago, and it has really been a slog to try and get through it, and I think that I've identified the 3 main problems, the reasons why I'm not gravitating towards knitting this, and I thought I'd go through them with you. So The first issue that I had is something that's entirely my fault. I use interchangeable needles, interchangeable circular needles when I knit, but I don't have a set. I just buy them as I need them. And when I purchased the needles for this project, not the loop, but the needles themselves, I wasn't paying attention to the length of the needle, like the actual length. And I got 10 centimeter needles, which are way too short. I think that the ones that I'm used to are like 13 centimeters plus, which might not seem like a huge difference, but holding them in my hands, oh my gosh, it was awful. My hands were cramping. I couldn't really get a good grip on it. It was just a nightmare. So I think I did the entire body of the sweater in those 10 centimeter length needles before biting the bullet and purchasing a larger pair, which I'm now currently working with, and it's going a bit better. But I'm still haunted by the 10 centimeter needles. The other issue is the stitch pattern itself. So I think that this is called a fisherman's rib or a half fisherman's rib. I'm not quite sure, but it uses knit one stitch below. I forget exactly how it's abbreviated, but you knit a stitch below, and the result of that is that you kind of compress compress each row of stitches, which means it's quite a chunky, quite a squishy fabric, which I do really like, but it also compresses the rows, which means you need way more rows in order to knit the same length as you would in stockinette stitch. So it was taking a lot longer to make significant progress on that, and I found that a little bit frustrating. Also, I really like knit stitches. I really dislike purl stitches, and I think a lot of people are in that same camp. And when it comes to doing the sleeve, it is one round of purl stitches and then one round of knit one below, purl one. So it's 75% purl stitches, and I really, really dislike that. So even though I've now got the right size needles, I still don't gravitate towards it because I know I'm just going to be doing a bunch of purl stitches, and I honestly can't be bothered. I'd rather pick up one of my other works in progress than this one. So that's problem number 2. And the third problem is the yarn choice. Now, I don't think it's an issue with Drops Lima or Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk individually. The issue comes when you combine them together. I find that they really, really stick to each other, kind of like Velcro. And this was confirmed when much earlier in the project I made a mistake and had to rip out a couple of rows. And it took me about an hour per row in order to frog the work because it just felts to itself immediately. It fuses and then it doesn't let go. And I find that I can feel that even when I'm knitting. It feels like I'm needing to put a lot of strength in my hands just to do like a singular stitch. It just feels like there's a lot of resistance on the yarn. It's not flowing very smoothly. And the stitch pattern, plus that friction of the yarn, plus the short needles, has just made it really, really hard on my hands to try and complete this project, and has all kind of, contributed to the same issue and meant that I've just not been making very good progress on this. I sort of dread having to pick up and work with it, unfortunately, because it is looking quite good. Otherwise, I am quite happy with how it's coming out. It's just the process of making it it's been unenjoyable, for lack of better words. And I was kind of telling myself like, oh, I wasn't going to purchase any more yarn for another sweater project until I'd finish this cardigan. And as you'll see in acquisitions, I've abandoned that now. If the sweater gets finished, it gets finished. And I don't care how long it takes to get finished. It's likely going to be a work in progress for a very long time because of the issues I'm having with the yarn. Frogging this project entirely and using it for something different isn't really feeling like an option. So the Daydreamer cardigan will get done. It's just probably going to be a long time until it's finished. and I am going to deprioritize it. I am going to work on other projects that I find more enjoyable, because I've just not liked knitting it, and I'm not going to torture myself by continuing to work on this more than I feel like I have to. So that's the Daydreamer Cardigan. The last work in progress that I have, also 3 works in progress is more than I usually have, but the mittens are basically placed on hold. This cardigan has been sort of not inspiring, and so I really only have like 1.5 active works in progress. That's how I'm justifying it to myself. And these are the Avena Sock by Natalia Vasilieva, and this is again from the 52 Week of Socks book, and I am knitting it in Bird Street yarn. They're 4-ply sock base, which is 75% merino, 25% nylon, in the color Ephemera. I'll try and hold it up here so you can see. The stitch pattern on this is absolutely beautiful. I'll put my hand in so you can hopefully see it stretched out a little bit more. It's this beautiful dip stitch pattern. I think it looks like leaves. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I think it's beautiful, this sort of foliage texture that it gives. I love it. And the color Ephemera is this sort of beige, almost pinky base with little flecks of magenta and little flecks of this sort of coppery brown and a couple of very, very small flecks of a turquoise blue. And I absolutely love it. I bought this yarn with the intention of using it to make this particular pair of socks. Because the stitch pattern is so beautiful and a little bit busy, I didn't want anything that was too colored because I didn't want it to distract from the pattern itself. And I'm so pleased with how this is coming out. I am officially losing the light, so that might be why you're not able to see this entirely. Now, I have a lot to say about the pattern itself. I think it is well known that there are errors in this pattern. Everyone who I've come across in person or any comments that I've read online seems to be in a consensus that there are errors in this pattern. And there is one YouTuber, her name's Cardamom Pins, who I think attempted to do a series where she knit every single sock in order in the 52 Weeks of Socks book. I'm not sure that she ever completed it, but this is pattern number 2, so she certainly got here. And she has some really great advice and information about, you know, her trial and errors making this sock and sort of how the construction of it worked for her. So I'll leave a link to that video down below so that if you're attempting to knit this sock or going to attempt this sock and you're finding it really challenging, that hopefully you can refer back to that and she might be able to give you some guidance to make it a little bit easier. I have found I've had a lot of difficulty, I should say, finishing this sock, especially when it comes to doing the increases down at the heel. I've finished those now. I don't know if you can see, but the pattern continues all the way down to the base of the heel. And then you do these like German short row heel shaping. She said in the video that once you got to this point, it got a lot easier. I am not finding that at all. I think it's just as hard to do the heel as it was to sort of doing the increased shaping at the back of it. But I'm plugging along. I'm hoping that within the next week or 2, I'll have finished out one of these socks. So then the next one isn't so troubling. I have a little bit of easier time with it because I am really loving how it's coming along. And I know this might sound a little lame, but I'm so excited to have this pair of socks because I think that they would look so cute worn with a pair of Birkenstock sandals, because when you wear Birkenstocks, you can see the sock all the way down to the bottom of your heel, and this pattern flows all the way down to the bottom of the heel. Also, Birkenstocks typically fit a little bit looser than like a boot or another shoe would, so I think that it will have the space to sort of accommodate this stitch pattern. So I'm very excited to wear these socks with Birkenstocks, and I'm excited to be through the heel portion of this, which is what I'm finding particularly challenging. So wish me luck with these ones. And those are all of my works in progress. That is all. I have another acquisition from the Unraveled Yarn Festival back in early spring of this year. but I'm not going to talk about that now because I talked about it in that video, and I might upload it, and if not, then you'll see it when I initially use it in a work in progress. But I did want to mention yarn that I have acquired, very similar to the last video. I purchased it, it's on its way, it's meant to arrive tomorrow, but I don't physically have it yet. And that is a Malabrigo Rios yarn in the color Natural, which is a 100% superwash wool in a worsted weight. I have heard incredible things about this yarn. It is on the more expensive side. It's probably going to be, in fact, it definitely will be the most expensive garment that I've made to date, but because of the issues that I had with the yarn for the Daydreamer Cardigan, I was pretty willing to spend the additional money to make sure that the yarn that I get for my next sweater is something that I really enjoy making. And because I don't think I've mentioned it, I'm going to use that yarn to make the Billy Pullover by Sari Nordland. Having a white cabled sweater was one of the things on my Make 9 that I mentioned earlier in the year, so I'm very excited to be one step closer to having that completed. I'm super excited for the yarn to come in tomorrow, and I'm hoping to have it cast on within the next couple of weeks. So hopefully by the time the next video comes up, there will be some progress made on the Billy Pullover. And that is all for today. Thank you so much for sticking around if you have made it this far. I know that this video is much longer than the ones that I've made in the past. 8 months has gone by, so we had a lot to talk about. In terms of the plan for this channel going forward, I am still hoping to be posting a video approximately once a month. So I'm hoping to get at least two more videos up before the end of this year, but we'll see how that goes. First, this video's got to get edited and posted, so hopefully that happens, and then we'll sort of take it from there. So thank you so much for tuning in again, and I look forward to see you guys in the next video. Bye!